Why can't you tell if a pterodactyl is using the bathroom? Because the P is silent. Hey, welcome back to another episode of Caffeinated CX, where we talk about customer experience and stuff, all in a hyper-caffeinated state. I'm David, the Caffeinated CXO. I'm your host here on Caffeinated CX. So, before we begin, just gonna have a small favor to ask of you. If you could like, subscribe, rate, and share the show so we can make the show grow. Because that's why we're here, right? Let's do it. Let's have some fun. All right? So, today, because I got inspired by something I posted over the weekend on LinkedIn, we're going to talk about video games and the state of video games where it comes to customer experience. Because, oh my gosh, does it suck to be a video game customer right now. Remember back in the day, where if you bought a game, and this might come across as the most boomer thing I've ever posted, and that does not mean age. It's a mindset, the stereotypical boomer mindset. Remember when you could just buy a game and you'd have the whole game? That was neat. And then you could go through that game, and if you beat it, you could have that accomplishment of beating that game, and then you can replay it if you wanted. Some games had multiple endings. Some games still do. But back then, when you bought the whole game, they did. Look at Chrono Trigger as an example. There were like a lot of endings that you could have in that game, and when you bought it, you had the full thing. It was neat. So, today, we're going to be diving into this because in a very short episode. So, we are dealing with a plague, and I'm going to call it that, a plague of microtransactions, battle passes, seasons, DLCs, loot boxes, and early release games. Now, these things might seem cool at first, but they're not. They're actually ruining your experience, and it's time that we all collectively, as gamers and as customers and as consumers, wake up and take notice. So, let's break it down. Microtransactions are like buying a sandwich and then being told you have to pay extra for each bite. Right? Battle passes and seasons are the modern day version of paying for a subscription to a game you already own. And early release games is like paying full price for a car that's missing its wheels. Alright? These practices are not only costing you more money, they're also robbing you of satisfaction and accomplishment that comes from completing a game. And I'm talking about single player games here, alright? Remember when you used to buy a game, play through it, and feel like you got your money's worth? Let's take Final Fantasy 3 or Final Fantasy 6, same game, for an example, right? When it came out, it was $80. And this is like back in the early 90s, right? Which, in today's dollars, that's like $165 for a game. But this game was 80 hours on the low end to finish, with tons of characters, tons of stuff, and a lot of things to do, right? So, was $80 at that time a lot? Yes. Was it worth it? If you're a fan of the genre, yes, it is one of the most popular and best games. In fact, in my humble opinion, it is the best of the Final Fantasy series, hands down. Now, but with all of these additional purchases and incomplete games, that feeling is becoming rarer and rarer. So we have some things that that go against the grain here. Like let's take Larian Studios' Baldur's Gate 3 for an example. Yes, they did an early release. Yes, but they had so much communication with their player base that it was worth it. And I believe that it was a lower price for the, pre-release of the game. And now it is one of the most talked about, one of the most loved, one of the most cherished single-player game that's come out in the last 20 years. Right? People love that game, and for good reason. One, it's a very, very, very good sequel to Baldur's Gate 1 and 2, some of the best RPGs out there, right? And two, they actually listen to the consumer. They listen to the player. And they made it so that the player can outsmart the game system, which is fun. So, yeah. It not only gave players a chance to provide feedback and help shape the game, but also ensured that when that game was released, it was a polished, complete experience. So, what can other gaming companies learn from Baldur's Gate 3, or Final Fantasy 6, or Chrono Trigger, hell, even Super Mario RPG or Super Mario Brothers, right? Listen to your players. Give them a complete, satisfying experience from the start. Be transparent about your pricing and the contents of the game. If you are pay to win, let that be known, right? Let it be known that the only way to get to endgame is by buying all this stuff, right? If you have microtransactions, let it be known that you can pretty much click on auto win if you spend this much. Or if your microtransactions are just for cosmetics, that's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with microtransactions that are for cosmetics only. My only issue with microtransactions is when it becomes the win button when you shell out a couple grand for some items, right? So, and treat your players with respect. Gamers are just not customers. They're fans, they're advocates, and they're the lifeblood of the gaming industry. Without players, there's no gaming companies. So, and let's talk about DLCs versus expansion packs, right? Expansion packs are fine. Expansion packs like what we saw and we see with World of Warcraft or any other MMO, or let's say Dragon Age, things like that, they add to the game. You get the full game, right? And then the expansion packs expand on it. New areas, new level caps, everything like that, right? Whereas DLCs, sometimes you get a new dungeon, or you get a new character, right? Why? And I know, it's all about quarterly earnings, right? It's all about making the bottom line. But how many times are people going to get burned before they just are like, okay, I'm just going to get an emulator and play these old ones, alright? So, I don't know. What are your thoughts on this? I'm going to go play some Guild Wars. Bye.